Welcome to Vision Pros, the show all about spatial computing, visionOS, and getting work done on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
We want to take the things that are annoying and frustrating about conventional tabletop experiences and remove all of that friction over time. But for these things where it's fun that it's embodied and it make it feel more tangible and make it feel more human, we want to embrace that 100%. And just keep going down that path. Yeah.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Vision Pros. I'm thrilled to be joined once again by Ethan Sherbondy. He was last on this podcast for episode 13 back in April of 2024. In this episode, we dive into a ton of different topics, including what the development scene's been like this past year, visionOS 2.4, everything that was announced and coming out, and just our initial thoughts there. A full episode on that when all those features are available will be coming out later. And we dive deep into Table Space, which is kind of where Dual Space, which we talked about a year ago, has kind of developed into. And it's this very impressive app that I'd encourage everyone to download right away for free in the visionOS App Store. It's called Table Space. And downloading it and following along as we talk about Table Space, which is an app that really impressed me as I was diving into that today. If you would like to support this podcast, you can do so over at visionpros.fm/Patreon, and by either signing up for the Patreon or by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, you'll get both iPad Pros and Vision Pros early. And my great thanks to everyone that supports the show financially. And if you aren't able to support the show financially, I'd really appreciate it if you could head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave a review for Vision Pros. Every review goes a long way in helping send the right signals to Apple, show this podcast more in search. With that, here's my interview with Ethan. Enjoy. Welcome back to the podcast.
Great to be back, Tim. I can't believe it's been almost a year.
Yeah.
That is
so you
wild.
were on episode 13 of the podcast. Was last time you were on, and that was April 2024, if you believe it or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's been a bit.
Yeah. Definitely an eventful year. We're on visionOS 2. 2.4 is coming up this April. A lot on the horizon. Feel like the XR landscape more broadly has evolved a lot. Mm-hmm. And also we are kind of in that trough of disillusionment, back in the trough of disillusionment, I think a little bit. But it is still a very exciting time, and 2025 I think is going to be a very exciting year for this industry. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what 3.0 is going to have this summer. But 2.4, as we'll talk about, has a lot of cool stuff in it. And it seems like Apple is just continuing to roll new stuff out for the headset, which is good to see in its first full year. Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we dive into too much, I just want to share a little update. As many people know, my battery cable for my Vision Pro has been through like a war zone. If you've seen pictures of it. So I got the second cable is on the way for replacement. But for those curious, the fancy battery cable, if you did not have Apple Care, is a $99 cable.
My goodness.
That fat lightning
for the braided cable.
Yeah. Oh that's a very expensive thick lightning cable, yeah. With Apple Care, it's $29. So that's going to be my fee to get that swapped out. But the thing that put me over the edge wasn't the fraying of the fabric, was it started turning blue near the connector to the battery, which I don't know if
I'm going to check mine now. I'm going to be freaked out a little bit.
I mean, I'm not sure how it turned blue near there. I don't know if if the dye
Truly.
from sheets in the bed or something. I have no idea, but it started turning blue over there. I don't know if it's a warm battery. It's making fabric dye. But anyways, it started turning blue there. So it's okay, let's get this swapped finally. And
you're
we'll
truly
see.
a power user.
Yeah, we'll see.
You're the first I've heard.
We'll see if I go and need a third cable, because the nodding issue has happened twice, and it happens pretty quickly for me, where I get basically a right angle in the cable. I don't know what I'm doing. It's basically just in my pocket as I'm in a recliner chair for most uses of it. So, So for those curious, that's the pricing. And last time I did not have the pricing, because the first time is a free complimentary service that they offer of just swapping that out.
Something.
Yeah, they did ask for the cable back this time around, so I do not get to keep that.
Oh, the old cable. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I still have the
Yeah.
original one that nodded, but anyways, yeah, enough of that. So last time you were on, we talked about kind of a couple of your projects that you had in the works, Dual Space and Mahjong Space, and is Mahjong Space still in the App Store as a standalone app? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Dual
As we'll talk
Space,
about,
yeah,
as we'll talk
has
about,
been renamed. Yeah, yeah.
okay, yeah, as we'll talk about, Table Space has kind of grown from all that work, and it's
That's
very
right.
impressive. And I think we should probably close with that stuff because I think we'll probably spend the bulk of discussion there. But I just want to just first off, just what's the development scene been like this past year? Like what's been interesting to you in this space?
Yeah, so I think visionOS has a really passionate development community. A lot of people would probably estimate like maybe half of the active users of the Vision Pro are developing for it. So if they're, at least that's how it feels in the
it seems like
Twitter sphere.
people are quitting jobs at big companies. Some of like the Portal developer you mentioned, he quit a big job, like development job at like somewhere overseas. Like he worked for like one of the big corporations, that good left behind a good paycheck to develop that app as a passion project that hopefully will become a big business. And I think a lot of people are just very passionate about the space, even if there's not a ton of users, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think there is just this continued excitement from the development community, people exploring what's possible on this device. It's not unique in the space. There are a lot of people putting out headsets that have maybe similar overlapping set of capabilities, but I think there is just something about that user experience on the Vision Pro and then the developer tools that Apple has made available that help people see what's possible in a new light, especially around just the polish of the user interface on this device and the quality of the pass-through and, all of these things that are just so compelling. And I think it really spoils you when you try another kind of consumer headset. At least for me, I've got a lot of headsets. We're building cross-platform software, and it is painful when I go off the Vision Pro to test something out because it really is this magical user experience.
Especially for the mixed reality stuff.
Absolutely.
For pure VR gaming, I'd say they still. It's not its strength. I'd rather use my PlayStation VR 2 for that stuff, just the haptics, and controllers and stuff. Which we may see controllers this year from Sony on Apple. So that would be interesting if that happens this summer or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but still a lot of excitement. But I think that meeting up against reality and kind of the constraints and Meta's doing their thing off in their world, kind of sabotaging their own developer ecosystem a bit, and
Google's starting to get into it this year.
Yeah,
has that been Android something XR, of interest?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the moment that was released, my co-founder and I, we signed up for the interest forum. They haven't invited us to any preview developer sessions yet, but we're keeping our fingers crossed that we might get a chance because we would love to port our software to that ecosystem. I think
that OS is not available in any shape or form yet. It's just been a preview thing on the website, or are there development tools out there?
Yeah, the development tools are out to some extent. There is a little bit of an emulator environment. You can at least do a build, test the basics there. The exciting thing, or I guess the nice thing is for a lot of Quest developers, if they're not using Meta's proprietary SDKs, it'll actually be a very straightforward port for a lot of those Quest experiences to run on Android XR. And for us, it is this exciting prospect, to be there on day one potentially. They were clearly very inspired by a lot of the software innovations from Vision Pro. I'm sure, when Vision Pro is announced, to whatever extent that effort was already underway. A lot of things shifted very quickly.
Steve Jobs' line of Redmond, start your photocopiers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So definitely, like you look at the user experience on that. A lot of things clearly inspired, but some things still, we have yet to see Apple's take on some of these innovations around visual intelligence, for example. Right. So like the upcoming 2.4 release of visionOS, it's actually, full of refinements and interesting changes, including the Apple Intelligence bit, which we, briefly mentioned. But it's missing that visual intelligence element, right? Around like actually helping you make sense of the things you're literally seeing in front of you, which feels like this very surprising omission, especially in light of that being kind of this tentpole feature of Android XR. So I think all of this this competition from the big players in the space is very exciting, very energizing for anyone building for it, of course, because it just means everyone's trying to make a wonderful experience for this growing ecosystem. And they're really trying to duke it out and one up one another. So it's like for that reason alone, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Early days of platforms are always just super interesting to see the shape that they take, and how they morph over time. With 2.4, were there any new APIs that you're aware of, or is it purely the customer-facing features that are coming out with 2.4?
Yeah, developer-facing APIs, I haven't heard about any.
Okay. I didn't think there were, but I wasn't sure if you knew of anything that I was missing on that.
Yeah, I feel like we did get a lot of great things in 2.0, and I would expect, similar in 3.0 this summer. Continued refinements and opening up of capabilities. I think the one thing that we're all holding our breath for or curious about is like broader camera access, or some mechanism to do more intelligence with what the user is seeing in front of them, even if that does take the form of like this image recognition stuff with just maybe a bit higher frame rate, a bit more unfettered access, ability to identify more objects in a scene, because that visual intelligence stuff, it is, I mean, if you're really gonna take building a mixed reality experience seriously, that's the big missing piece in this ecosystem. And Android XR boldly and a bit surprisingly, honestly, it sounds like they're just gonna go for it and give, of course, behind the permissions dialogue, and like it should be very apparent to the user if you're requesting camera access. But they're seemingly on day one, that's just going to be available, and so we'll see if
Hopefully 3.0 has it, because it was in enterprise tools for 2.0, so maybe they tested it out and figured out what works from a safety angle there. But yeah, as far as 2.4 with Apple Intelligence, it seems like they're just porting all the same things and putting it there. So there's like an image playground app, the messages app has the Genmoji and all that stuff. Like,
it's summarization and these basic text.
I got my first priority notification in visionOS the other day for a iMessage that came through, and it had like a special color to the notifications, like ooh, and it was an important text. So I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. I would love this. Text input is such a problem with visionOS for me without a keyboard. I don't know if Apple Intelligence could improve that in any way with some special visionOS only tool, but nothing like that currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, at least we're getting parity, right? So we're getting this baseline layer of consistency. So it's a resounding clarification, I think, to the world that, this is not a platform that's going to be neglected going forward. And they really are trying to keep it in lockstep with the rest of this broader kind of OS ecosystem that Apple has going now. So that's encouraging in itself. But yeah, I mean, these visual intelligence stuff, right? Like the text input, like there's a lot you could do there in terms of, handwriting recognition. If you could jot down, scribble down even without, an inking device, with hand input. And there are just so many things that that feel, I think as a developer, it feels like a low-hanging fruit because you know it's possible. And as a user, you know it's possible. And, we're awash in people demoing these mind-blowing AI-powered experiences every day now, it feels, right? And it's really taking the oxygen out of the room. And so I think to the extent that as long as these omissions exist, there's space in all of our minds and we're questioning, oh, why? Like, because we know these things are possible now, right? And
yeah. And I
guess that's a good place to be.
Yeah. And it was so concerning that Apple Intelligence was just like not spoken about for Vision Pro, even though it's got an M2, it's got 16 gigabytes of RAM.
Right. Quite capable.
Seems like it can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So they finally got around to adding it. And
absolutely.
It's very happy to see that. And that's the only thing currently in the betas. But the stuff that's not in the betas is the stuff I'm more eager to see roll out.
Yeah.
The first is the Spatial Gallery app, and I'm gonna have a whole episode once we actually get this stuff in beta, so we can actually talk about real experiences. But I just think this is a cool idea of bringing together spatial content, so not fully immersive stuff, but 3D spatial stuff, so photos and videos. It looks like behind the scenes stuff from Apple TV Productions, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that takes the form of videos and not just photos. But it sounds like there may be a third party opportunity for this. I don't know. It sounds like it's pulling stuff from other apps potentially, which would be interesting.
Yeah, that it does sound like a really compelling possibility. I think a lot of the things that people complain about on the development side is this discoverability problem, right? And it's not unique to Apple's ecosystem. A lot of these platforms struggle with this. There are some things that exist on the App Store on iOS that still haven't made their way over to the visionOS App Store. So things like promoted events and other mechanism to surface like bits of content from inside of your app.
Yeah.
To the App Store proper. So I feel like the spatial content app, whatever form it ultimately takes, it seems like it will be a mechanism for more, I guess traditional kind of pre-recorded media, at least, to bubble up. Maybe in a similar way to, what Apple was trying to achieve with their Apple TV kind of experience, right? Bubbling up content from other applications.
Yeah.
I hope we'll start to see that for this spatial content. But yeah, something interesting about the spatial content is it can really take so many forms, right? So it could be still images, it could be videos, it could be full on 3D models, that you interact with in ARKit, previews. So it could be environments in the future, right? I think there are a lot of people holding their breath for third-party environments. It just seems like this could have a lot of breadth of scope over time, and I'm curious to see where they'll stop, where they'll draw the line on that front.
Yeah, and hopefully there's a good queue of content in there. The thing I'm also very excited for is this new iPhone app. So just like the Apple Watch, there'll be this app. And one of the cool things is currently to see what 3D movies are available in iTunes, you have to either use like chart tracking apps that will have that metadata, which is often the best way, or you have to go in the TV on the Apple Vision Pro. You can see if it has a 3D flag. And sometimes you don't even see the full list when you hit all movies because the person hasn't added it to the list yet. So I'm curious if the iPhone app will actually just have a automatic, here's the 3D movies, versus what iTunes does, which is more hand curated. Here's the 3D movies, even if it doesn't show all of them. So that's something I'm curious about. But you'll be able to download download apps and movies and all sorts of stuff to the Vision Pro from this app, which is cool.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And this to me feels like Apple is learning in real time. Maybe this was planned like years ago, but it does feel like they're willing to cede that some things are really necessary, for this ecosystem to take off. Learn from Meta's example to some extent, right? They've had their companion app on phones for a while, and it is really helpful to be able to search, when you're out and about, or as a friend tells you about an experience, and just look it up real quick, add it to a wish list, queue it up for a download, and even potentially trigger a remote launch, so that it's ready in your headset the moment that you put it on.
Purchase
and remove
apps.
all of that friction. Yeah.
It'll be so nice to be able to just like, when I'm on lunch break, let me just see what's on the App Store for Vision Pro. And because right now you have to just, on the Vision Pro is the only way to actually browse what's new for Vision Pro apps. Yeah,
there's this string. It's like half implemented. If there's a way to view the listing for a Vision Pro app. Like technically, like if you have the link from your phone or your computer,
you can pull up a single app, but it's not like a browsing situation. Yeah,
exactly. So I do think this will be a huge boon for content discovery, and it is just it's wonderful. That very real experience. If you have friends with Vision Pro, they, you're talking to them, they recommend an app. You say, "Oh, I'd love to try that." And now you can actually action that intent, right?
Yeah.
And get it queued up. So I am really excited about that. Yeah.
And then this app will also, I believe, enable guest user mode in a much more friendly way.
As someone who gives a lot of demos, I think it's like, part and parcel of being a developer is you're going to be giving a lot of demos of your app, hopefully. Guest mode is a really difficult experience on Vision Pro prior to 2.4. And these changes, they really are going to be a game changer for us who are doing demos day in, day out, because there are so many gotchas. Like, even though I do this all the time, like sometimes I just forget to, there are things with the sound preferences. It's like sometimes I accidentally like make it go through external display. I'm like, oh no, like I'm so sorry. Sometimes guest mode just, like you do a little flip with the headset, and then that, like breaks guest mode or something.
Yeah,
it like triggers. Yeah,
you'll be able to trigger AirPlay mirroring from your iPhone or iPad, which will be so nice.
Oh, so excited!
So you don't have to like, oh, give me the headset, I can start the AirPlay session. It's like, oh gosh,
yeah, huge quality of life thing, and giving demos for this sort of technology is so important, because it really is. It's an embodied experience. So if you want people to know what it's like, they have to try it firsthand, right? Like a video is not going to do it justice, right? And I mean there are a bunch of like hardware level things with the Vision Pro that unfortunately still make demos a bit challenging in terms of just like fit.
Yeah, and the one thing is the Zeiss lenses, which it'll store the code in this new app, which is cool.
Yeah.
If you need the code again. But like, I really wish, I guess it's a medical thing in America, but like, why can't guest mode allow people to use my Zeiss lenses, which are just -3s
if you have a
size, like
similar prescription?
Exactly. It's going to be a better experience than like they have glasses and you can't see a damn thing.
Right. Yeah. And so, there are these like hardware form factor question marks about like, okay, was the individually catered light seals and like slightly more sleek form factor, but you can't fit glasses inside. Like, were those things worth it in terms of, allowing for broader adoption and easier demoing and all of these sort of things? I think that's a big question mark for me.
I mean, having used VR headsets in the past, it's always preferable to have the lenses inside. Like that, I did that for PSVR 1 and 2, and it's so much nicer than, even though glasses fit on there technically.
Yeah, it's painful.
It feels terrible. Yeah. Like, oh, am I going to scratch the lenses or whatever? It's like, not great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But anything else on 2.4 worth mentioning to you that you're excited about?
I think we covered kind of the big announcements. I hope I'm not drawing a blank on
that seems to be most of what's in there.
Yeah.
As far as visionOS 2, what were the big things for you that enabled you to bring table space much further this year than you would have been able to with the original set of APIs?
Yeah. So that's a bit of there's some nuance there. And I think part of it has to do with our choice of technology. So when I was first getting going with visionOS development, I was doing Swift and RealityKit and, going all in on kind of the native tool chain. And yeah, when it comes to developing games, I think Reality Kit has a lot of gaps. And there were a ton of developments over this past year and folded into visionOS 2 that unlock a lot of like basic kind of game developer capabilities and make them available in Reality Kit. And some of it is like low level mesh rendering, like pipeline stuff that just like make it possible to do performant, like certain types of animations and things like that. Some of it was more high level, interesting stuff that has to do with like physics interactions and animation system, all these kind of things. So you could really tell that Apple was putting a lot of love and care into like making Reality Kit like a more viable target for people who are used to doing kind of more sophisticated things in the games and interactive experiences space. So that was all very exciting to see. And then we also saw a lot of changes and refinements to the volume system, which unlock a new set of capabilities. So I think, visionOS is trying to walk this really fine line. A lot of these decisions, they go back to these like privacy concerns. Here I am like talking about I want camera access, but on the flip side, it's like I do honor and respect what they were trying to do in terms of like principle of least privilege. The setup with volumes is so interesting because it doesn't really have a great analog elsewhere in the ecosystem. But volumes were so constrained, right? So I think when you think about like when you're trying to make a really cool, compelling mixed reality experience, like what are the levers that you have for inputs? It's like it comes down to your hands. Right? You've got in visionOS, you've got your eyes, you got your hands, and you have your head. And so, this is I feel like a small thing, but they're trying to walk this fine line and allow for you to do things that would normally like require full access to your head pose. They offer some mechanism to do something there. So like this was just a subtle thing, but Apple added this billboard effect. So that means like you can have an effect that would normally like require you knowing exactly where someone's head is, but the OS will take care of that for you. So you can have like pieces of UI and menus and things like that always facing the user without having and still have it like work in a volume. So things like that, I think is really compelling, and it's very subtle, but it does open up a new class of experience. And then I think that, one of the big areas that got a lot of love was actually SharePlay and spatial personas. This is very exciting development. They open up this whole template system, so you can really have like free form layouts of people when you're doing these embodied SharePlay sessions. So like in the games context, right? Say you have a game, it involves like 4 people placed around a table in a very particular layout, right? Before you couldn't actually express that like with SharePlay spatial, like, you can say like, I want them around the table, or I want them like side by side, but you can't say like, this person needs to be sitting here. This person needs to be sitting here. And so now you can finally express that. And that's a really exciting thing, especially for people like me who are building tabletop style experience. I think like, to be honest with you, in table space, we can talk about this later, but like, I'm not taking advantage of that because we're deliberately not using SharePlay. And we can talk about why that is, and like wish list for visionOS 3 and these sort of thing. But it is clear they're putting a lot of consideration into these technologies that they're making available to developers. And then of course, even just like, even though it's under an enterprise entitlement now and all of that, caveats galore, the camera access thing is really, really interesting and really compelling because it's just going to open up so many new experiences. And that one, I'm so curious again about the form that'll take for like end consumers and the broader app store eligible app experiences, because there are so many like QR code scanning, just having like OS wide QR code scanning or like opt-in QR code scanning for an app like that would be a godsend. That would be,
It'd be very cool.
it sounds so primitive, and you're like, we've had that on mobile for like a decade, but that would
We
open
say
up
this
so
as
many.
Delicious Library was killed off this past year because
Yeah.
Amazon shut off their access or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
QR code and barcode scanning at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it'd be very neat. There'd be a lot of applications for that, I think, and be just a neat thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So
You could even have a
starting,
fake red line in your display of like, you could have fun things like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
fake laser coming out of your, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, there were some things that it's like, I don't know if it's even worth mentioning, but it is a big deal. It's like, so this is related to the volumes thing. But before, okay. So hand gestures, right? So important, so foundational to these sort of embodied experiences. There was this funny omission, and I don't know, maybe it was part of this like privacy angle or something. And this sounds so particular, but like before, if you had an app that wasn't doing full hand tracking, so like a volume based app, and you had a user do a gesture. So like say they do a pinch or they do a drag or they, like rotate or something. But before the operating system would not tell you which hand they used for that gesture. And it sounds like it sounds very mundane.
That
like
Marvel
like,
experience probably would not have been as good if it didn't know what hands doing what. I'm guessing.
Yeah. So there are like certain things where you're like, I really need to know which hand that was, if it was somebody's left hand or right hand doing that gesture. And it just like, it wasn't available and now it's available. It's like, little things like that, go a long way to having, like a sound baseline experience and allow people to express all these different style of input. And, it's still, it just feels like such early days still. And so giving people the means they need to be able to experiment with all these style of input, it's a really big deal.
Yeah. So let's dive in the table space. So I had you on like a year ago, as we said. And at that time, Dual Space was the name for what became Table Space. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very much a working title. I knew it had to have space.
Yeah.
that's all.
Mahjong Space, Table Space. I see a theme here.
That's right.
And I downloaded it tonight, and we hopped on for a little bit. You showed me around as well in the app, and I was blown away. Everyone, you should go download Table Space. It's free. You're calling on your website a public preview. It's not in its final form, but it's coming along. It's impressive where Dual Space was and where this is. Dual Space was like, here's the alpha prototype of let's get the interactions set, and this is just filled with just delightful just things throughout the app. You've got a train like driving through your space. You've got this basement area that just mining down there. It's just every little thing's just thought out. It seems like it's just it's graphically beautiful, sound designs spot on. You get like a music soundtrack that's kind of not in your face but just delightful. And can you tell me a little bit about Table Space and kind of the aspirations of what this is?
Yeah. So it has been an eventful year. So I think when we last spoke, this was really just an inkling of an idea. I had an interaction prototype that at the time only ran on visionOS and didn't really support multiplayer properly, and was very bare bones. But I was really just piecing together the basics there. And since then, decided to go for it and form a company around this dream of creating this tabletop sandbox for mixed reality, allowing people to play any tabletop game under the sun is like the full form ambition of it, right? So that can be card-based games, it can be board-style games, trading card games, and anything that you would play on a tabletop. More physics-based things in the future. Really just embrace, the fullness of the sandbox dream. And yeah, we're still just getting started on that path. It's a more ambitious thing than originally set out to do. And so there was a lot of foundational work that we had to do to make sure it worked cross-platform on visionOS and Quest in parallel. That we had a really solid foundation for like the core interactions, that the multiplayer networking stack worked and was robust, and we're still working on making it more robust. And then also that like every primitive that exists in the game that we use for our own kind of first party experience, we can make available to players and allow them to visually make their own tabletop experiences. And that last bit, it required a lot of thinking, and we're still kind of building out the primitives. But that's something that we're really excited about because it means that we can really allow anyone to express themselves in this kind of tabletop arena for the first time without necessarily having to be a developer or like consider themselves even like a builder in any sort of like from a technology lens, and just make it as simple as like you can draw your cards out. You could use like a Figma or any sort of illustration program, or you could literally draw them on paper, pull them into table space, and be up and running with like all the networked physics interactions and rules automation capabilities we're starting to have, all of these things to express yourself. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback and like have early partnerships now with some board game creators here in the Bay Area. And we're kind of like building out a roster of partnerships also to do like licensed games. So far the reception there has been really positive. Like people are so jazzed to see their physical board game in mixed reality for the first time. And so they're kind of like a few parallel tracks that like reinforce each other. We're excited to like keep building out this dream over the coming years. Really, I think like doing that cross-platform thing is hard because this, everything is shifting and like kind of different sets of assumptions around input and rendering and all, like everything's pretty different across these headsets right now. But I do think it's really important because it means, these communities can be less siloed. So your friend who has a Quest and a friend who has a visionOS device, they don't feel left out, and they can join and share the same experience together and like not have to be concerned so much about like what is the headset.
So the app one challenge is just get the app running on both places, but you've gone to the extent of when you open up the app, you're in like a communal lobby where people are just your little avatar person is wandering around. But that you're telling me that both Meta and Apple people are in the same lobby and able to communicate and play seamlessly. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
With no friend code sharing, it's just there and working. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So we really wanted to remove friction from that social experience of just feeling like you're in this shared space together and you can hang out. And in the mixed reality context, the idea of a lobby and like how you jump in and out of experiences, it took us a while to think about how is this even going to work. We came upon this idea of miniatures because it allowed you to kind of zoom in and out of scale across worlds, basically. When you enter the lobby, you are a miniature and then you can pick them up and place them at a table, or you can walk them over to a table and then you're kind of zooming in to that table and then experiencing that with the people around you.
It's kind of like Link's Awakening, the Switch version where you know, a little character and
absolutely.
You send that guy there and basically, you'll send them to like, you can play solo as well if you want to do that. And you tap, walk over there and he'll jump into the board kind of thing and You can exit after that if you want, and you'll see how many people are currently in a session of poker or whatnot, and you can jump into that as well. And and you're just in the lobby when you join, which is cool to see. Other people to play with, you'll know right away.
Yeah, and so I think there are a lot of things as it continues to grow. Of course, we'll open up more lobbies. Right now, we're kind of working our way through the seasons. So this is like the first year of Table Space, and so we're on the winter lobby now. There will be a spring lobby, probably a month down the road, and then summer lobby, and then we also have like a Halloween themed fall lobby, and so allowing players to cycle through these different kind of default lobby worlds, and then as it grows, we might break out into game specific worlds. If there's a big community forming around a certain game and we need a little bit of crowd control to make it still feel people scale, and maybe like doing kind of like sharded servers and all that kind of stuff that may be familiar to people who are playing these MMO style games. But there is just this element of delight, I think, when you arrive at this tabletop world for the first time, the goal is always to just bring that sense of wonder to people. And, the reason that myself and my co-founder Braulio are doing this is really, it's about creating that sense of magic in the world. We're trying to do right by like our childhood selves, like living this dream. And so, always trying to pay tribute to that. And just remind people, the sense of delight and wonder in the world.
Yeah. And just a cool thing when you join like one of the tables, you have multiple card games in front of you for at least one of the modes you join, and you just place the deck of cards in like the middle there, and that signifies let's use this, and it will then there's like auto dealing modes and stuff, and which I found like a cool way to get a game start. It's like place like almost Indiana Jones, place this thing and it'll like lower itself into the thing and just
that's right. I think people refer to this as like diegetic user interfaces. I guess is the fancy way of saying that, right? But we really, we're gonna have menus. It's hard to avoid like 2D menus. They're very useful for certain things. But to the extent that we can get away with it, we really want to embrace like diegetic interaction, where the way to do a thing is the embodied version of that thing. And I mean, you can call parts of this like skeuomorphism or what have you, but it's like you're gonna play a game, you're literally gonna grab that box and place it down.
Yeah,
you're gonna draw cards from the deck of cards. You're literally gonna pick them up. There are areas where things get tedious in real life, right? And you wish you could automate them. And so we are going to make those things feel magical, and things like auto dealing and like turn sequence automation for like a game, say like Texas Hold'em, where it comes in different rounds, kind of like magically drop the cards down, do that kind of stuff, do bookkeeping stuff for you. So we want to take the things that are annoying and frustrating about conventional tabletop experiences and remove all of that friction over time. But for these things where it's fun that it's embodied and it make it feel more tangible and make it feel more human, we want to embrace that 100% and just keep going down that path. Yeah.
For the cleanup option for the table, there's an option to just clean up everything. Have you played around with fun ways of cleanup, like all the cards in your hand burn or disintegrate or something?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is like, we have a very, very long to-do list. but this is one of those things that we're very excited about, is the constructive ways to destroy
exactly right?
everything in the game. Have them, burst into flames, have them explode, have them shrink into, infinitesimally small. There's a lot that we're excited to do there over time. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, as far as accessibility options, like one challenge is just reading what's in your hand, and you've developed this pretty cool way of seeing stuff better with this. You point with your hand, and you have like a laser coming out of it to you can point at a card in your hand that you're holding, and it'll show you what that is, which is very handy for things like Cards Against Humanity, which you showed me early sneak peek at, which their license, I guess, will enable you to have that potentially in table space one day, right?
Yeah. So text legibility is one of these things. It was a breakthrough that the Vision Pro, the displays are such a high pixel density that you can actually comfortably read text for the most part. But yeah, with these tabletop style experiences, someone across the table from you, the card is quite far away. You can't quite make out what it says. And in real life, I find myself like, especially when I'm playing like a trading card game or something, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to grab that card and like pick it up and be like, oh,
well, what's
goodness,
the stats of that guy?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so like these sort of thing, like you wish you could do in real life, you can do in table space. You literally just point your finger, a laser comes out, and then you see a nice expanded version of the card. And yeah, and so like there were a lot of these foundational things, interaction that were like we wanted to solve that and make it delightful and make it playful. And I think it's like we're finally getting there, and the primitives are finally coming together. And you mentioned Cards Against Humanity. On their website they say to steal the game. So we're planning to do. We'll offer it as a free game mode with very clear attribution. I think with what we're doing is like we're trying to walk a fine line on the licensing front. So like any tabletop game creator that wants to work with us and do a licensed rendition of their game, we're very excited to work with them. And if they want to monetize that, we want to work with them to monetize that on favorable terms to them. But for these things that are in the commons, we want to allow people to play those and have a very, very fun, compelling version of that experience. We're excited about having Cards Against Humanity out the door soon, and a lot of other classic games that have kind of been on the back burner for us. I think what's so interesting about this tabletop arena is like it's really this massive long tail, and everyone has their favorite board game or their favorite game that they like to play with a conventional deck of playing cards. And so that was part of the impetus for us to get this builder tool out the door sooner rather than later, is because our players would come to us and they'd say, this is so cool, I love this, I've been looking for this, but I really want to play this one game that I play with my friends from my hometown that you have never heard of. And I look it up and I'm like, this is such an interesting game, that's fascinating. I don't know how we're going to support all of these games unless we empower the players to make exactly the game that they want to experience.
Yeah.
And so, that's exactly what we're doing now. Yeah.
Have you thought of how you would support games that are fast and kinetic, like War, like where you're slapping on the table,
ERS,
and maybe a way of like auto, like a button you can tap to dispense the next card, and then another hand is like slapping when you're like the fast games, like versus slow methodical games. Like how does that challenge present itself?
Yeah, that's a whole other kind of work stream on our very long to-do list. But absolutely, yeah. I think it's a really great fit as well for mixed reality. Anything that's like kinetic, embodied. I was so delighted when, and a bit surprised when the spatial personas, they started adding little inklings of that, right? So you could do like the fist bumps and things of that nature. I think that's going to be a whole category of game experience within table space that we're very excited to support a little bit later in the year probably.
Because how far does visionOS extend with gesture recognition? Like, could it recognize a slap on the table or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's up to us as developers. Of course, you have to request full hand tracking access.
Right.
But yeah, we've been working on a robust gesture system to support that sort of interaction. I think like learnings for us and from other developers in the space, the tracking on visionOS is very good. But there are certain experiences where you're like, if it's off even by like half a centimeter, it feels wrong. and like it feels wrong. It's like you're like, I'm sure I'm hitting this virtual table or your real table.
Yeah,
you
or
have
my
these lined
lap
up with
was
your
like
real
another
table.
like if you hit your lap as like a thing because you're sitting on like a chair or whatever. That'd be a
I had a really interesting conversation with this guy, Tomas, the developer of an upcoming title on the Quest called Laser Dance. And he told me, fascinating stories about all the challenges, that come with, you try to place a virtual button on a physical wall. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to line it up just so, you're going to have to make trade-offs. You might have to make it comically large, right? You might have to do some funny stuff to make it work out like the level of accuracy that the player really wants, so that they can feel assured, like, yeah, they slapped their hand down and they know they did it first, and the game will give them that feedback, right? So yeah, a lot of subtle challenges there, but I think we will get there, and yeah, it'll be a blast when we do, because I played those games growing up all the time, and spent hours by the swimming pool at the YMCA.
Right. No, I don't think spoons would be possible. Leaping across tables to grab a fake spoon, that would probably be a bit of a stretch. But other things, yeah. So no spatial personas, because that involves a FaceTime call. And there's other restrictions, and instead there's this avatar kind of system so you have the miniatures when you're in the open world lobby type thing, and then you've got, are all the avatars the same with different kind of like eyewear kind of things currently? Is that kind of the
Yeah. So right now, our avatars are a bit Spartan. We tried to, so it was an anti-goal for us to make them lifelike. And yeah, I can have a whole conversation about this, but I think that the spatial personas are amazing, but I also, like, when it really comes down to it, I do not like them.
I wish I could import my Nintendo Me into Apple's system somehow.
Yeah, because they really reside strictly in that uncanny valley. And it, like, as a technologist, it's like there's an element of, I am blown away that it can recognize my facial expression at any level
better
of
and
accuracy.
Better,
and it's getting better and better. I have curly hair, and that's a whole challenge. I think like it struggles a little bit when your hair is sticking out in different directions. Doing a clean cutout, that sort of thing. I think it's just it remains an anti-goal. I don't think we should be going for photorealism right now. It's disturbing. I think it's amazing, but it's disturbing. They got a lot of flack. We don't need to recapitulate this topic, but for us, it's like the goal is not for them to be lifelike, but it's for them to be fun and expressive.
Provide presence.
Provide a sense of presence. Yeah, and so there are some things that we might explore, taking advantage of, like the virtual front-facing camera that visionOS will give you. To kind of reconstitute some of your spatial persona, but likely with some kind of comical effects applied on top of it. And in a way to try to kind of like reverse engineer a Memoji like experience. But I honestly think there was this element of Apple really wanted to be a point of contrast relative to Meta's avatars and other, like, everyone think of VR and they think it's silly and they think it's for kids and they think it's not lifelike and it's not for serious adults, But I think in some ways that was an act of hubris, honestly, because it led them down this path of the uncanny valley, and like things being fun and things being comical is like a good thing. I think for this inning of this technology, it's like it allows you to be playful. It allows you to express yourself. So I really hope actually that Apple releases a Memoji experience, for visionOS ultimately. And yeah.
I wonder if they'll do that at some point. I know they want people to use spatial personas to get used to them, but I wonder at one point in the future they would say, you can be an elephant if you want to be an elephant.
Why not?
But maybe it may take him a couple years to get over that. and the more people that use it, the better, faster improves, and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Have you considered adding hands to the Spartans? Because I'm thinking,
Oh, absolutely.
because I'm thinking one
Yeah.
thing, like when you're playing a game of cards,
Yeah.
knocking on the table is a way of just saying I pass. You
Yeah.
know, and that'd be hands could be useful just visually to see people when you're playing.
Yeah. So that's coming very shortly, like over the next few weeks. Yeah. So you
Okay.
have kind of like oven mitts.
Yeah.
Not fully articulated hands, and yeah, that part of that actually was due to some technical quirks that were resolved in visionOS 2 and our development setup. And so yeah, now we will very shortly have like nicely rendered articulated hands. They'll still be comical hands, and
Yes.
they're not gonna look photorealistic like a person's hands. But yeah, it is a very important aspect of a lot of games to have. So something really remarkable that we experienced actually pretty early in the game's public preview. That took us by surprise, and it's like I wish we had gotten to the articulated hands sooner. Honestly, we had some deaf players join our game, and they were trying to do sign language, and I was blown. It's one of those. I think it's like this adage about accessibility. It's like everyone has different things that they need accessibility assistance with, right? All of us do. And I was blown out. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Like this makes so much sense to be able to have these, shared experiences with your friends over distance. And so it's like we really want to make sure that table space is a welcoming place for people like of all different walks of life. And so articulated hands are very, very important for us, and we are a little embarrassed that wasn't like a day one thing in the pub. But it's part of why, it's exactly part of why it's the public preview, because it's not 100% where we imagine things being over the coming months. Yeah.
And then onboarding, I was delighted to be greeted by, was Hal the onboarder's name?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good memory.
And just guide you through just the basics of, grabbing a card, controlling your miniature. Do you think you'll end up doing more with Hal, or is that kind of more onboarding stuff, more tutorial stuff with Hal? I love the voice. I don't know if that's a friend of yours or who you got to do the voice for that.
Yeah. Oh, well, so that was actually a voiceover from 11 Labs.
Okay.
So it is an AI voiceover, and I think that's part of the sign of the times, right?
Yes.
And it's amazing. It
sounds good. Yeah.
They're amazingly lifelike. I think Hal was this first experiment for us to have a baseline onboarding experience. We have much like kind of larger ambitions for offering like storytelling within these games. So as we're partnering with these independent board game creators, a lot of them have these amazing stories about kind of the origin of the game and how they came upon it and the story of its development. And part of our aspiration with what we're doing with the licensed game modes is like we want to give them a platform to tell their story of like why they created this game and what it means to them. And this opportunity for the creator of the game to greet new players and tell them about it, explain the rules to them, we are very excited about. So, that HAL experience, that was like a very provisional kind of version of this thing that we ultimately want to do. But my co-founder Braulio, he developed some really amazing motion capture technology that actually runs behind the scenes for it. And that will allow us to, as part of this visual game builder experience, allow the creators of the game to do these embodied sort of motion captures and explainers and tutorial content and a lot more that we're not quite ready to talk about. I think in terms of single player experiences inside of table space. Entire kind of narrative arcs and first party content that we're planning out, as well as some more formative things around embodied agents in multiplayer experiences, which I think is like a hot button topic. It's like I think some people are maybe disgusted by the idea that you might one day be playing tabletop games with an AI, you know, and to the extent that you don't even know that it's like an AI at first brush. And so we want to walk a fine line there, but there are a lot of exciting things that we have plans on that front that I think they really will be a big deal for this tabletop domain. Yeah.
For games like Solitaire, where, you know, king has to follow queen and whatnot, is the system currently advanced enough to like have more guide rails to not let you put down like a card that would not be acceptable according to the game's rules? Like, how advanced can the card game rules be to kind of guide a player through a game easier?
Yeah. So this is a kind of a foundational thing that we're building out, and is one of those things that also will mark the end of the public preview once we get there. But yeah, ultimately, Table Space is going to have this whole kind of scripting layer that allow you to have that beautiful hybrid of guardrails and a rules engine, and allow people to express like more complex kind of game automations and restrictions, while maintaining that kind of free form style of interaction. So yeah, we're still building that out. Right now, you know, there are basic things around drop zones and snapping and dealing automation and some level of like point keeping and counters. But there are some like fundamental primitive things that we're working on, and we plan to each of these things, you know, expose to players to be able to create their own games that take full advantage of them. So that one, it'll take us a bit of time to.
But it's in the pipeline, the roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool.
Absolutely.
That's cool to hear. Yeah. And then Discord, you guys have a Discord server and a very nice, delightful interaction in Table Space of hitting a little Discord button. But a restriction in visionOS makes this a less than ideal thing, because when you hit that, you're yanked out of Table Space, and it's kind of hard to find it again. You have to like ask Siri, please open up, Table Space for you, because it's, it's not there anymore. Because it's a volumetric app or a fully immersive.
Yeah,
what
so
do you call it?
it's a mixed immersive app, and that was it. Goes back to some of these things that we want to do with hand tracking and all of this stuff, right? It's a fine line, and we wish and have this ambition actually for the lobby to be able to work just in a volume, and allow for full multitasking. But short of that, I think like with this Discord experience that you had, like we're just gonna have embedded web views and have our own kind of,
that seems to be the
sort of
way to do it.
jank version of Safari, embedded in the game for now. And this is one of those things that's also on my wish list for visionOS 3, is to have some level of what Meta would call like panel-based apps. Allow for multitasking.
I know they can do it because you can do the Mac Virtual Display with the developer mode in a fully immersive app. So it's possible, Apple. I know you can do it. You've shown that you can do it.
Yeah.
Trust the users that. You just need to trust the users that they're not confused about having.
Yeah. I fully get it. It's like, it all sounds wonderful on paper, and then you get into the details. Like, okay, Safari, for example, right? It's a window-based app until it's not, because Safari supports, WebXR and all this stuff, right? So it's like technically, but I really do hope something is coming on that front. And short of that, I mean, in the short term, we're just going to have our own little jank version of Safari running in an embedded web view to work around some of these issues. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And then, are private lobbies a thing, or not lobbies, but game sessions a thing, like inviting friends to a certain game or whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you can make your own custom game rooms and then just invite friends to that room. And I think on the moderation controls front, there's a lot of work for us left to do in terms of like really granular privacy controls and the ability to kick players or like shadow ban players or like auto mute players that are annoying or something like that. So these are things that we're planning to build out very soon. But yeah, you can make a custom game room and invite your friends to that, and that'll allow you to do I guess like a semi-private session. But we do have plans for more granular controls on that front.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And as you build out, there's a scoring system within this. It'd be neat to build out a tournament system where there's winners and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that gets back to, I think, this concept of having lobbies that are kind of dedicated worlds for certain games. And yeah, the dream, or one of the sub dreams within the bigger dream is to get to that point where, you can run a full on Texas Hold'em tournament or a Magic tournament, whatever is your favorite tabletop game, within a world and table space, and see kind of the progressive rankings and the roster, and have kind of points awarded and maybe achievements and special in-game items like a fancy medal or a hat or some googly eyes or whatever is the prize, a special card back like this. We're very excited about this idea, so we're gonna get there. But yeah, absolutely.
And then with the chips on the table, and like with poker, trying to pick out how many chips you want to bet with, what's the thought of picking out the individual chips versus having some kind of on the table in front of you, some kind of like number pad where you enter the chips and it gives you those amount of chips for you to throw in there? Because it can be like the current solution is like some kind of rip. Can you explain this current solution and how it all works now and different approaches for this?
Yeah. So in table space, there are certain types of things that are spawnable. And so those are things like poker chips and dice and coins and counters and things of that nature. And currently, the poker chips, there's a drawstring interaction. So if you think to like Woody in Toy Story, it's like it has a little drawstring, and that'll let you accumulate the count and pull chips off. It's an interaction that we're still playing with, and honestly, like, we're not married to it. I think it's one of these things where it was fun
yes.
as like an interaction experiment. But yeah, there are a lot of other takes on this that we're exploring as well. Because at the end of the day, like, we are trying to strike that nice balance between automating the things that are tedious and having that embodied interaction. And I think on this one, honestly, we haven't quite hit the mark, because it is fun to like kind of yank the chips off with the pull string and these physics interactions and things like that. But sometimes you just want to like get going and like, yeah. so that's something that we're going to keep refining. Yeah.
Very cool. What else? A lot of things. You have this very clever way of linking the cards to your hand if you want them to be. So you have this little puzzle piece. So in the deck of cards, or the hand of cards that you have, there's a triangle. And if you look at your other hand, has a circle with the triangle piece cut out. And it's this very satisfying thing of, let's put the triangle into that puzzle piece, and then that is now attached to your hand, the hand of cards, which is such a clever, just fun interaction. And it's kind of like a fidget thing. I just was doing it over and over again. But just, that was just very neat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we chat about briefly offline this idea of fidgetable interactions being especially important in these mixed reality experiences. And so that is our aspiration. It's like every little thing that you do frequently in the game, we want it to be fidgetable. We want it to just be intrinsically fun to do that action, kind of independent of the game itself that you're playing. And so this hand dock concept, it went through a lot of kind of rounds of iteration. So we were like, there was this very real kind of design problem that we were setting out to solve, which is, in an embodied experience with cards, like different people have different levels of comfort of where they want the cards placed, like distance wise in front of them. And for certain games, you want to be really secretive with your hands. And certain games, it's more collaborative, and you might even be doing like an open hand version to help your friends learn about it, right? And so we wanted to allow for that flexibility in terms of comfortable placement, and have a means for someone to like kind of let the hand float and let it just chill while they're doing another action in a way that's not really possible in real life. And so, yeah, we made that hand dock this kind of first class thing in the game. But then we found like, yeah, there are a lot of scenarios where like you want it to be more like real life, where you're like, the hands are in your hands, right? And so that kind of puzzle piece snapping, it came into place mentally, as puzzle pieces do. And we were just really excited to build out that interaction. And hadn't seen quite something like that. And in terms of hand anchored UI. I think this comes back to, my co-founder Braulio and I, we are kind of obsessed with this idea that like, and try to keep reminding ourselves that we are in the earliest innings still of these embodied computing experiences. And, like, we call it like we are still in the pre-Polter refresh era of visionOS,
Yeah, Tweety has not yet been invented where we find these groundbreaking things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we will continue to do a lot of interaction experiments. Sometimes maybe when there was like a more simple, seemingly more simple, straightforward, like push button based solution or something. But really that's in the spirit of trying to push forward the frontier of interaction in this new medium and create these delightful moments in things that are otherwise like feel mundane. It's like, all right, I got a hand of cards, like, so what? But that can be this magical, delightful thing in this new medium.
Well, anything that I didn't touch on, like the soundtrack's is it the same soundtrack every lobby, every game you enter, or does that change?
Oh, yeah. The different lobbies do have different soundtracks. And the musical score stuff also is like an area where we hope to have a lot of collaborations in the future.
Yeah, with stuff you buy, the game creator could supply their own soundtrack to it. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And so, these board game creators are, so creative and talented and multifaceted people. And so some of the ones that we have collaborations in the works with, they're also musicians and they're talented musicians and they're excited about, making the soundtrack, that was their dream. Like they finally get to make the soundtrack for their game and the mood of the game. And so there's so much that we're excited to do on that front. But right now we have some, admittedly Muzak like soundtrack in some ways, but
it does the job
try
though.
To keep it
subtle,
thematic and seasonal, and I have something there rather than silence, and rather than I don't know, like what you're used to, I guess. Give people a sense of what's possible. Yeah.
Well, anything else worth mentioning about Table Space before we wrap it up?
I think like honestly, my co-founder and I, we're hanging out in the Discord all the time. We love hearing from players. Feedback is one of the most valuable kind of currency in this world right now, because if someone take the time to share feedback about the experience, it means that they really care about it. I view this as an exercise of us dreaming together with all of the players about what could be possible on the horizon. So I think the most exciting thing for us is to just give Table Space a try, share with us your dreams for it, and we'll build it together. And I'm just so excited still for this next decade. I think every technology has this kind of trough of disillusionment, and VR has had multiple, or XR, whatever we're calling it today, has had multiple. And I'm sure it'll continue to have like ups and downs as an industry, but yeah, like there's just so much potential ahead of us. And yeah, I'm very, very hopeful about where all of this is going, and kind of like trying to push for a utopian version of this technology to the extent that we can. Yeah,
for sure. Well, this has been a fun catch up, and we'll have to do it again as Table Space advances and visionOS 3 comes out and all the fun stuff awaiting us this year. Yeah.
I cannot believe Dub is like a little over 3 months out. That's nuts.
So it's basically March right now. Yeah.
That's wild. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So where can people learn more about Table Space, download it on the App Store and all that good stuff, follow you online?
Yeah. So our company is called Boxtree. And so we are on boxtree.gg, and Boxtree on all the social media, or trying to be on all the social media. I am personally at Sherbondy. That's my last name on X and other channels. But yeah, I think if you're playing Table Space, the Discord is a great place to be sharing with us and engaging with us like in a more direct way. But otherwise, X, whatever we're calling it, I'm still on it, for better or for worse. And we're trying to do more video content on YouTube and these different channels, just because I think these experiences so hard to convey, how it feels. And like video is the best we've got on screen-based media for now. So we're trying to put out videos more regularly and just continue to engage with the community. Yeah,
that's great. Well, thank you. Really appreciate your time, Ethan.
Likewise.
Great.
Yeah, it's great to catch up, and really appreciate what you do for this ecosystem, Tim. Like, it's a big deal. Like, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Like, you're helping to pull it together and bring all of these voices out and share all this creative stuff that they're doing. So it means a lot. Like the service that you're doing for this, still very young community and ecosystem.
Well, that's been a review with Ethan. My thanks again to Ethan for his time recording. My thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. And make sure to check out Table Space in the visionOS App Store. Download it today for free to check it out. As a reminder, you can support this podcast over visionpros.fm/Patreon. And if you haven't left a review yet in Apple Podcast, head over to the Apple Podcast app to leave a quick review. That too would be greatly appreciated. With that, I'll talk with everyone again real soon.